The following paid commercial program is brought to you by TD Wealth.
Tonight, on a special edition of Money Talk, we're leaning in. Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook wrote the book on it, asking why women's careers and finances can stall. Her conclusion? Change the conversation from what women can't do to what they can, even if they don't feel quite ready. But what if you're an MBA student, starting off a new career and in debt? Our guests weigh in. Tracie Crook, one of the 60 Lean-In Circle champions worldwide. Sandy Cimarroni, executive sponsor for TD Wealth's Women Investor Program, and psychotherapist Kimberly Moffat on how to make it all work in your life. And my MBA co-host, Alex Fitzgerald. You can lean on us to lean into your success. That's coming up on Money Talk. Welcome, hello, and thank you very much. It is great to have you with us today, and it is us, as you can see. As you can see, we have a live studio audience, which I would bet is one of the smartest studio audiences in the history of television. It's a group of women in the MBA program at the Rotman School of Business at the University of Toronto here with us today. Thanks so much for coming in. So great to have all of you. The reason they are here, our show today is focused on embarking on a new career. How to have it all, or at least have it the way you want it. I mean, really, how do you get the great career, the great paycheck, the family you want or not, and go to bed happy and satisfied every night? It's a big promise for the show. We'll do our best. On career, we've got one of the global champions of Sheryl Sandberg's Lean-In Circle. On money, we have the Chief Operating Officer of TD Wealth and the executive sponsor of the Women's Investor Program. And then on family, life, balance, and sanity, who's kidding who, a psychotherapist will weigh in who just came back from talking to a whole group of MBAs. But first, I have a special co-host with me on today's show. She herself is an MBA candidate at Rotman. She's joining me to ask questions of our panel. Please welcome Alex Fitzgerald. Alex, nice to see you. Come on in, have a seat. So how far are you into the MBA?
About 2 months.
2 months?
Yeah.
Did you have any idea what it was going to be like when you started?
I was warned, but I don't think I was really warned sufficiently.
Yeah.
It's different living it. So.
Let me ask you, when we come on and talk about, balance and how to have it all, what is the biggest single challenge for you in terms of when you look out, what are you worried the most about?
So I would have to say, as an MBA student, definitely career is sort of top of mind. Because,
and what about career?
Well, at the end of these 2 years, I need to find one. Yeah. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But then finding the right one where it's going to balance with all of the other things I want in my life.
Yeah.
So to tie in with the family and to have something that I'm willing to spend hours a time away from my family. So
give me a sense of, because I don't think sometimes, I know the audience is going to be very familiar with this, but probably the general audience who's watching, how much are you out doing an MBA? Tuition, living costs? I mean, you're sacrificing a lot to put this in line to move forward.
Yeah, so I would say foregone salary aside, it's about $140 of an investment, tuition, and living expenses. Sorry, $140,000.
Because I say that's exactly a good deal. It's $140. Yeah.
Then I'd be doing it lots of times over. Yeah.
That's a lot of money. And so you have to kind of figure out the payback on that. And then, I mean, because I will, full disclosure, I did my MBA a couple of years ago, maybe more than a couple of years ago. And I remember at the time I was very focused on my career. I didn't think about balance. I didn't think about, that side of things. Do you think about that?
I do think about it. So I'm married, so I think that
helps.
Helps me think about it for sure. But it is like really, I mean, there's so much support around women right now and helping them understand that they do need to be mindful of family at the same time as career, because otherwise you just end up stuck at a point and then you might be opting out, which is not what I'm sure me and my classmates really want to be thinking about after investing all of this.
We've heard a lot about leaning in. Sheryl Sandberg's, at Facebook. What does that mean to you? When you first heard that, is that something is that positive? Does it stress you out? What does leaning in mean?
So I loved it, probably like a lot of other people, which is why it's so popular. But I loved it because it put a little bit of onus on us. And there's a lot of really great opportunities coming out, and I want to make sure that myself and my classmates and just women in general grasp at that opportunity so that we can get further ahead. So I like that it's not just complaining about how things are, but that it's really let's take ourselves forward. So
All right.
that was exciting.
Let's take ourselves forward. We've got our next guest who's going to be joining us. She is the Chief Operating Officer of McCarthy Tétrault, which is one of the largest law firms in Canada. She is one of 60 women globally who is part of the Lean In Circle of Champions founded by Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook. And let's bring in Tracie Crook to tell us about what that all means. Tracie, come on up. Nice to see you. Come on in, have a seat. So, Lean In Circle, what is a Lean In Circle?
A Lean In Circle is really 8 to 10 women getting together, normally women, that they actually get together to support one another and to learn from one another. So it becomes another support mechanism for you.
Learn what? I mean, when you say, because I would, what leaning in is, this came about because I guess Sheryl Sandberg thought people weren't leaning in. They were opting out. They were leaning back.
Right.
So what does that mean to lean in? Why did this have to be put in place?
Really, it was put in place to help other women support one another. So instead of leaning out, you actually have a group that you can ask questions to. So when it comes to, should I apply for this particular job, even though I don't have all the skills, your core group of women in your Lean In Circle should be able to help you decide and support you in your approach to your new job or whatever you're trying to accomplish. And as well, there's tools on the site that you can actually learn from how to negotiate your best, your next job and your pay increase and everything. So it's really a support group, a mentoring group that you can feel safe and confident with.
Why did you become part of this? I mean, were you leaning in or were you leaning out?
It's a good question. I would say the reason that I got involved is because I have been leaning in for all of my life. For a while, I've been leaning out, which I said I just don't have the time, and I finally decided I actually need to make the time and support other women. And it was really through meeting some very influential women that I saw how passionate they were about it that I ended up wanting to get involved and thought I could make a huge difference for women.
I want to let you get in.
Yeah, so, a little bit biased here, but as a young female, how are we targeted in your Lean In circles? Is there a role to play?
There's a huge role to play, and I'll give you an example. My circle has women from the age of 24 to 55. And so each one of us at each age and stage of our career are actually benefiting from the different individuals in our circle. And so how I've not targeted people to be in the circle, I've actually been receiving emails and phone calls of people wanting to get involved. And so it's really a great group of women together, like I say, at each age and stage.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
She's going to do well. She's going to ask questions.
I'm just trying to think logistically. One of the challenges I find with sort of being in the career development stage is not having a really flexible schedule.
Right.
So we're sort of at the mercy of those who we're working with at the more junior phase.
Correct.
How are these women finding the time to get involved in a circle?
It's a good question. And so what we've done is we've made it flexible. And so sometimes the meetings might be at lunchtime, after work, before work. And so what we've tried to do is meet everyone's schedule and also make it's not mandatory. So we didn't put the stress on someone that if all of a sudden in your career you get called in by your boss and you can't make that meeting, that's fine. So we've really made it flexible so that you can attend, and 100% attendance is usually what happens, but there will be those occasions that you can't make it.
I want to jump into, for you, if you can give us a personal experience for you when you were at McCarthy. You said you were leaning out for a little while. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? What did that look like for you? Does it mean not taking positions, not what? I mean, what caused that?
I would say it's two things that I was doing. One is I was just so busy, like most of us, to your point, working 60-plus hours a week. Where do you find the time? And so I was finding out, I was leaning completely out and saying, that's great for everyone else, but I just don't have the time. And it was after seeing the announcement around Sheryl Sandberg, I thought, no, it's my time and my opportunity that I have to make the time. But I would say the other way I was leaning out is in board meetings. I was typical, I'm always in board meetings. I shouldn't say always, but a lot of times it feels like I'm in meetings, period. And I would notice that I was actually in the meetings, but I was sitting back. I would either let everyone come in and take the seats at the boardroom table and I would sit in the back, or I would sit there and just be quiet and be afraid to say anything. And after reading Cheryl's book and realizing, and my mentor saying, you know, you actually have good ideas, you need to put them out there, it made me realize that I have to make a difference. And so I started leaning into that.
All right, stay with us. When we come back, we talked a bit about leaning into your career. Let's talk about leaning into your finances. More on that when we come back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Here are some statistics for you. Canadian women are now more educated than men. 37% of women now hold a university degree compared to only 26% for men. And women are making inroads into every single profession. Yet despite that, study after study shows women have less confidence in their earning capacity and their finances than men. And here to shed some light on that, Sandy Cimarroni. She's the Chief Operating Officer of TD Wealth, also the executive sponsor of the Women's Investor Program at TD. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, you know, we were just talking with Tracie about leaning into your career, but how do you lean into your finances? Especially, again, keep in mind, we just talked about, I think, what's the $140,000 debt load?
Right.
They're leaning in. They're starting that. But what do you see that is absent generally from women as compared to men?
Yeah, so we do a lot of studying and a lot of work with women and ask them that exact question. So why is it that men are more involved than women? I mean, you mentioned one of the problems is just time.
Right.
So women will say often, I don't have the time, or I think it's a lot of time that I have to invest that frankly, men or women will say is a challenge for me. The other one, though, that's interesting for women is women will often say, I'm not worthy of really thinking about it because I don't have the money. So that's one that we really try to dispel and say you have to start early, you have to think about your investing very early on, you know, as you're embarking on a new career and a new life, if you will. The one that we spend most of our time focusing on, however, is just the whole issue of confidence. So women will say it's a very complex world and it's intimidating. And sometimes we in the industry make it intimidating. There's a lot of jargon, there's lots of complexity that appears to be as part of our investing world. So we spend time talking to women about the basics and just the foundational elements of how do you start and not to be intimidated. You know, knowledge, as we say, is power.
Yeah. It's funny, though. I would say, and are you actually, before you started doing your MBA, you were working in the wealth business.
I was, yes.
But do you find, I'm always surprised, but, you know, professional women, very accomplished, and still intimidated by their finances?
You know,
I mean, are you?
yes, absolutely. And it worked at it, yeah. So I think as women, we like to have, I'm speaking from personal experience here, but like to have a grasp on everything that's going on. Yeah. So the fact that there's some things within wealth management that I'm not that crystal clear on intimidates me. And I don't mean to generalize this to everyone, but I'll use my husband as an example. I think for him it's more, oh, well, I'm a smart guy. Like this makes sense to me, and you know, I'll figure it out. Versus I like to have that security up front. So
the grassroots understanding of how it is. And is that what you've heard? Like,
oh, absolutely. I mean, you describe it perfectly right. So women are generally perfectionists. I mean, we can generalize and say that's true. So they do want to know everything.
Smiling,
yeah, and we're also control people. We like to control everything. I was going to say
freaks.
We like to control everything in our life. So sometimes those two attributes will deter you from really stepping in or leaning in to understanding your finances.
So let me ask you, for this audience then who's listening, you know, they're incurring a debt, significant in terms of moving forward. What advice would you have to them in terms of just beginning to, because it's hard to think about your investing strategy when you're so in debt. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you come out with debt, and I mean, that's the number one priority, is you have to have a plan to pay that off as quickly as you can. So when you embark on a great career, then you have to put that money aside, make sure that you're, you know, paying down the debt that's required, but also looking at opportunities to increase the amount that you pay each and every time. So maybe twice a year you top it up by $100 every month that you're paying down. Yeah. At the same time, you know, the biggest lesson I learned certainly early in my life was pay yourself first. Put a little bit of money aside each and every pay, $50, $100. You know, you equate that into a pair of shoes. That's not a lot of money. And make sure that you're doing that, you know, and doing it regularly and consistently.
I'm going to put our audience on the spot. Okay, who here does that? Who pays themselves first? Really, honestly. There is not a single hand going up. Do you pay yourself first? I mean, it's hard. I know right now it's hard, but I mean, that's the kind of thing you need to do.
I'm not talking about right. I mean, right now you're really invested in making
hard to pay
sure.
yourself in negative dollars.
Yeah,
that's right.
But yeah, I think you have that sense of sort of commitment to your finances, and I think that unfortunately you're not the #1 commitment in that regard, but I love the idea.
Yeah, I mean, as you get out, and I'm not talking about now as a student, obviously you're focused on getting through the next 2 years and paying down your debt. I mean, as a married couple, you have to start thinking early about what you want to plan 3 to 5 years out. You mentioned a family. So together, if you can squirrel away $50 or $100 each and every month, I think that will make a big difference for you. It's not so much the dollars, it's the discipline that you learn.
Yeah.
And as you see that money compound over time, you see the real value and the benefit.
Let me ask you, and Tracie, I want to pull you into this too. I'm thinking one of the best ways, of course, to create wealth for yourself is squirreling away money, but it's also making a good salary. Do you think women are good at asking for what they think they deserve in terms of compensation?
Absolutely not.
No?
No. I think that most of the time, and I know even from my own experience, I'm a terrible negotiator. And so it really forces, we're terrible at asking for help or asking for what we really deserve. And so it's practicing that, and how do you get better at it?
Yeah. Sandy, any thoughts on compensation? Not that, I mean, you're not a compensation expert, but I mean, you know, in terms of structuring, just those kinds of things to think about when you're embarking on a new job.
Yeah, I think initially it's just, you know, you don't have the confidence perhaps to ask.
Yeah.
I think over time you learn, of course, with experience and wisdom, and
But
you
you're worth
say,
it.
yeah, you are worth it, and you also become to value the contribution that you make. And I always say, what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you ask? Like, why wouldn't you take that leap and say, I deserve to be paid more, and therefore I should ask?
Yeah.
And also have your facts straight about what's your contribution, right? It's what are you contributing each and every day to add value to the firm, the department that you're in, whatever role that you might be in.
I've worked with people, same thing, where you have them list out, they get surprised when they actually realize what they've actually done. They just don't actually mentally do that checklist.
Or they get surprised when they ask, and the answer is, sure. Jeez, I wish I would have asked a lot earlier. Yeah.
Well, and I think that checklist takes away some of the emotions behind it, right? So
Absolutely.
getting flustered and...
Yeah.
And having the market data as well helps, right?
Yeah.
So that you can say, here's what the market's really paying.
Yeah.
And then for me, it seems easier to ask then. It's because you don't feel like you're asking for more, just what's fair.
It's more of a business decision at that point, right?
There you go.
The emotions out of it, absolutely.
All right, well, we've got one more so-called business decision coming up. After this, let's say you've got the career handled, let's say you've got the money handled, you've asked for it, and you're socking away a bit. But here's the hard part: family, life, balance. What's it all for, and why you need to take steps now to make sure that you have it later. That's a discussion coming up right after this. All right, welcome back to a special edition of Money Talk. We are talking about leaning in. We've got a group of Rotman MBA candidates in our audience. As I said, it's the smartest live television audience, I think, ever in the history of television. And on my panel, actually, we've got a number of people, just to recap who's here. Sandy Cimarroni, she is COO of TD Wealth and the executive sponsor of the Women's Investor Program. Alex Fitzgerald, she is an MBA candidate at Rotman and my co-host. We also have, of course, Tracie Crook, who is joining us. She is COO of McCarthy Tétrault and part of the Lean In Circle of Champions from Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, talking about the need to lean in, and she's championed women around the world. And now we brought in Kimberly Moffat. She's a psychotherapist and founder of KMA Therapy, here to tell us how to do all that and do that. I'm pointing to you. I'm talking about family. I couldn't have staged this any better. You're how many months pregnant?
I'm about 8.5 months pregnant now.
Okay, yes. So we didn't do this on purpose, but it is somewhat the point. How do you do the great career, you know, you're saving money, you've got everything taken care of, and do that? I mean, it is a lot. Women are being asked to do so much more than they ever were, say, 30, 40 years ago.
Absolutely. And a lot of women that I speak to in my practice are often asking me this exact question: how do we have it all? Can we have it all? Is it even something that's feasible? And on top of all of this, when we do have families, there's so much pressure on women today to be competitive, they see what other moms are doing, and they want to feed their kids quinoa and all of this healthy food. And there's just so many things that are on our shoulders in terms of competing and being the best. And so in terms of our careers, we want to be the best at our careers as well and have it all. But in my opinion, it's more important to know what's really important to you and say either my career or my family. And
is it an or?
I don't think it's an either or. I think we have to take aspects from each that are important to us. So for me, I've been able to do that through business. So growing and developing a business to the point where it's grown stable, and then to be able to sit back and say, okay, it's at a point now where I'm ready to take some time to be with my family and to take a little bit of time off. Mm-hmm. I think every woman has the ability to carve out her own little space in this world and to make the world work for her, as opposed to her feeling like she's on a treadmill at all times.
Let me ask, and Alex, I'm going to let you get in here, but for the women who are sitting in this audience, and for Alex, and I don't presume to ask for you, the last thing on my mind when I was doing my MBA was balance. It just was. I was career, I wanted to do this. So is there anything, though, that I needed to do back when I was younger to prepare myself for that balance conversation later on? Like, what's the to-do list?
Well, we've all been there in that position, and I've done a master's as well. So it's one of those things where we kind of have. There are times in our life where we have to put it all into something, and we do that because we have goals and ambitions, and that's important too. But there comes a time, and what I've learned from great leaders and working with a lot of leaders in my practice is that good leaders know when it's time to take a step back. So I think once you have achieved some of the things that you want, you realize that none of it's worth it unless you have someone to share it with, or unless you have love and fun and joy in your life. So to me, it's really important to kind of keep those things reminding you of why you're working so hard.
Alex?
So I totally hear where you're coming from, and I love it. And all I can think of is, oh my gosh, I started too late. Because, I'm 29 and I'm in my MBA program. I'm doing the calculations in my head, and when I'm supposed to be really investing a ton in my career would be, ideal time for me to have a family as well, which is really important to me. So for those of us who didn't plan it out all too well,
which, by the way, is probably everybody.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Can we make it work?
I think it's never too late. And the thing to remember, too, is women, we can't be perfect all the time. Life will never happen in a perfect order at all times. So if you have a family while you're completing your MBA, even that wouldn't be the end of the world. Or if you're, it might be a little bit difficult. Yeah. But there are always things that happen in life that we just have to make work. And we do it. And I think the key in all of it is staying positive and remembering that it's not the end of the world, and that if we keep our head high and stay positive and support each other, then that's the main thing.
How do you reconcile? I'm curious. I mean, when I think about leaning into career and lean in circles, I think about this conversation, they seem to clash a bit. So do they to you, or is this just my hearing?
I think from that perspective, it's more what choices you make you have to be happy with.
Right.
So I would say if you looked at it strictly as balance, I don't think you can have complete balance.
Because your balance isn't my balance, nor is it your balance.
And we all have our own definition of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think at the end of the day, it goes back to what you were saying, is we just have to be happy with the choices that we make. And there will be trade-offs at different points in time, but you have to be comfortable with those choices.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think the thing that you need to do before anything else is kind of decide what it is that you want and what's important to you.
Do you think,
and make those choices and live with them.
Do you know what you want? And I'm not being that in a disrespectful way at all. It's just that when I was 25, you want different things at 25, 35, 45.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. And I think, it evolves over time, right? So it's. And I hear where you're coming from. I think you sort of have to think about, okay, I know how old I am today and what I want today, but I need to think a little bit out into 5 years and what does life look like for me then. We actually went through the exercise of doing a future authoring. So we wrote out, here's what life looks like in 5 years, and then we actually took the step to go backwards and say, what do I need to do to get there?
Sure.
That, to me, was one of the most valuable experiences that I've done so far, because it really made me realize all of the different things I need to hit on. Now.
Yeah. Did you know?
It'll be fun to read that in 5 years.
Yeah.
I wish I would have done that 20 years ago.
Did you know? For you, it's been, just on a personal basis, at 25, did you know what life was going to look like 15 years from now or 10 years from now?
No. I always knew that I wanted to work. I didn't really necessarily know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think you learn over time, and as you get different experiences offered to you, you try to figure out and you find out what you like to do.
Yeah.
And so a lesson learned for me is, and I've had many different roles in the organization, is find something that you really like to do, because you spend a lot of time doing it.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask for that opportunity that may not be necessarily on the same path, but gives you different perspectives, right? And I think that when it comes to balance, I do agree. I think you can have it all. I just don't think you can have it all at the same time.
Right. Right, and that's a big one. It's funny, I was doing some reading, and I found this on TED Talks, which I know everybody goes to TED Talks. A woman named Dr. Meg Jay, and she was going about how people in their 20s try and find themselves. It's all the habits. You talk about wealth habits that get created in your 20s that matter for the 30s. So, but just it's important in terms of partners and life and balance to make good habits in your 20s, because that'll matter later on. What would you say are your absolutely do not do's? again, for this group of women at this point, and regardless of what their definition of balance may be different than yours and mine, but what would you say either they have to do now or should not do now?
Sure. I think the most important thing that I would recommend is setting goals. Now, that being said, when you're setting goals, do not stay so dead set on those goals that you ignore everything else and you pass up opportunities because of that. As you were saying, part of the beauty of this is being flexible and being able to find out what you like and what you enjoy, and then steering in those directions and being creative with the whole thing. So set goals, set short-term and long-term goals, and also be flexible with those goals.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Such a pleasure to have all of you here. Great conversation. Sandy Cimarroni, COO, TD Wealth. Alex Fitzgerald, graduate of MBA Rotman 2015. There you go. Yes. Kimberly Moffat joining us, of course. She is a psychotherapist and founder of KMA Therapy. And Tracie Crook, COO of McCarthy, Tétrault, one of the, if not the biggest law firms in Canada. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, that is it for us. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to our audience. You guys are wonderful. Thanks so much for coming in. And of course, thank you to you for watching. If you have any questions on anything that you've seen, or if you want someone to take a look at your portfolio, if you have some planning questions, please email me at moneytalk@bnn.ca. I'll get you in touch with someone who can answer those questions for you, and we'll get those answered for you on the show. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again next week.
The preceding paid commercial program was brought to you by TD Wealth.